Welcome everyone. I'm Laurel Walsh. Today we have the distinct pleasure of presenting to you about some of the best supports that the Center for Faculty Excellence has in helping our faculty support our international students. And the overview here is basically the big topics that we're going to touch upon in our presentation, Melissa and Alex and I. But I wanted to start by saying that in preparation for this conference, Melissa and Alex and I were thinking, well, how best to really think about a faculty support and where are our experts on this topic. And so we actually, to prepare, compiled a survey and we sent it to all the Walden international faculty who live in other countries, thinking that they might be a really good voice to describe the international support that we provide for our students here at Walden. They might be able to kind of point us in the right direction to best practices and some tools and tips for us. So you'll see as we present the material that we've put together for you today that we've really looked to have faculty voice. We've included survey responses where possible. And also just to note that all the links that will be on the pages will be live links to additional resources when you're able to look at the PowerPoint after the presentation. I know sometimes we're going kind of quickly through the materials, so don't feel any sense of urgency. We'll have these slides later, and Alex will also, at the very end of our presentation, give you a tour of where some of our additional resources are found so that you can locate those items after you participate with us. So to begin with, we wanted to think about how can faculty really best support our international students. Our international students bring a wealth of global perspective. They bring multilingual insights and observations, and they're able to provide us really wonderful insights in our discussion boards and share their experiences with our Walden domestic students. So we really recognize as an awesome population. We love and want to celebrate their presence, and we are looking for ways that we can do that in a positive way. So some of the best practices that have been identified by our international faculty really involve making sure that the materials and the textbook are friendly, and some of the ways that you can use electronic resources for your students so that they do not have to go and obtain textbooks or wait for them to be mailed. We want to talk also about Walden's global social change work that we do. We have a number of public service trips where Walden students go to international locations and really serve and support other communities. We want to talk about some of the ways that international students who are in our doctoral programs can receive visa assistance and other kinds of supports that they might need for an international residency attendance. And again, there are some real interesting distinctions that those of us who were raised in a U.S. academic environment, we kind of know these odd glitches and rules, and there's a lot of different points of view about how to really honor and reflect on the research that other people provide. And so we want to talk a little bit about the U.S. academic integrity nuances that are distinct to our country. And again, you'll see peppered throughout our presentation our international faculty's voice. We wanted them to be really seen as the experts here. We see our faculty as the brain trust of the institution. It's really wonderful to be able to bring their ideas right to you. Oh, I was going to speak to the first part at least. So, for example, when we're talking about creating the courses or working as SMEs and looking at how we can really support international students in course construction, an example I wanted to point to is the Center for General Education created a first-term course called Humanities 1001, Living and Learning in a Technological World. And as we constructed this course, we were very mindful that our students are coming from, all over the planet, and we wanted to make sure that the resources were all very convenient. So in this course, we embedded and used materials from our Walden library. So every single thing in Humanities 1001 was a piece of course material or information or reading or presentation or visual that was obtained from our library. I think that that's one of the things that when you're in your courses and you're looking to find the textbook and getting it mailed to you if you live in an international live outside of the domestic U.S., the time for materials to arrive at your door, and should anything happen in the meantime or any damage or loss, that can put you on the back foot in a fast-paced course. So in Humanities 1001, which is only 6 weeks long, we really tried to make sure that all of the materials were right there at their point of need. Another best practice that we've talked about is making sure that you think about how global your classrooms are. We have a wonderful free interactive map. There's a hyperlink there, and we encourage our faculty to place that interactive map in the class cafe. So on the first day of school, classes, everybody's all excited, and you can kind of get a visual of where your students are living and learning to make it feel a little bit closer. I'll admit that when I first set up my interactive map, I inadvertently set it just to the U.S., which kind of worked against the point of making sure all of us could picture where we were. That term I had a student who was living off the northern coast of Venezuela, so it was really interesting to be able to kind of periscope back and see where all of us were living and interacting with in our class discussions. Another thing to be very mindful of, and this came out of our faculty survey, is that our students are working under numerous time zones. If one of your courses has a group project that has any synchronous coordination necessary, make sure that you're really looking for individuals who are closer to each other's time zones to work together. Just there's a little tool there that's a hyperlink to the world clock that you can place into your class cafe or in any area where people are trying to collaborate in real time to make sure that we're all aware of where people are and complications associated with the time zone.
As Laurel shared, we provided a survey to our international faculty so that they could really provide us with some really good feedback in terms of how faculty can support students that would really make the international students feel welcomed and really a part of the class. So here is a list of some of the written comments that were provided from our international faculty in terms of materials that could be shared with the classroom. So one of them is promoting the use of ebooks. I myself, in addition to being a staff member in the Center for Faculty Excellence, am also a PhD student currently here at Walden. And I find, I live domestically in the U.S. in Atlanta, Georgia, and I find ebooks are just so much more convenient. Not all of the textbooks have ebooks, but I always check. So when my class starts or when I get access to the course list, I look to see what books are available, and then I go online and see if I can find an ebook. They tend to be less expensive, and then the best thing about them is that they're delivered immediately. So you purchase it, you get an email, and you can download it. So this is something that can be very, very helpful for international students, and it speaks to what Laurel just shared about the shipping of books and sort of having to wait to get those materials. And while some courses may have, already identified that, there may be other courses with longer textbook resources that are required for the course. So those are all, sort of all things that that faculty can suggest. And in the particular course that you're teaching for faculty, you may even want to sort of get ahead of that curve and check on your own if there are ebooks and provide a resource list to students in your announcements or maybe via an email. Again, just another way to support international students in the classroom. Also providing exemplars for maybe assignments that you have found over time teaching the class that may be tough for some international students to understand. For example, if there's a cultural or language barrier that just for some reason you notice that students either ask a lot of questions about, or maybe they get hung up on a specific assignment, you can sort of get ahead of the curve maybe in providing some clarification ahead of time. Another suggestion was just providing a better understanding of the cultural style differences when it comes to writing. So that's some feedback that we can provide to our writing center. And then just in general, having sort of a tone of a more international approach, and to make sure that when we communicate with students that, we're not just always speaking of things just in terms of the U.S., and to be cognizant that we are an international university and that we have students and faculty literally from all around the world. Another suggestion was, or I guess question more so, was whether or not we have a cultural competency expert on hand. And I actually know of a couple of faculty members who this is sort of their area of expertise. And Laurel, I know you do as well. So again, this is some feedback that now that we have it, we can, start to think about how we can help faculty implement these things to better support our students. And with that, I'll hand it over to Laurel.
wanted to kind of share about how we enhance our domestic student understanding of global experiences. And one of the things that Walden has really been a trendsetter in is international study abroad. Lulu Williamson she oversees one campus in the Center for General Education, but she really began the very first online study abroad program that was ever offered, and it's been ongoing for years now. She's brought Walden students to China, Italy, Greece, Scotland, Ireland, France, and numerous other places. I'm coming. I think we have a trip coming up to Prague. Yeah, here's the list actually. October 8th through 19th will be a trip to Budapest, Krakow, Prague, and Vienna. And these are really amazing immersive educational experiences where Walden students are able to go to another country and bring a researchable investigation kind of as we have a course that they can take as a companion if you're an undergraduate student. And during that time, if you're a College of Health Science student, maybe you're looking at smoking cessation and how it's treated differently in Greece and Italy. Or maybe you're looking at some issue from arts or culture if you're an undergraduate student and you really want to think about it in a humanities context. But these are an opportunity for Walden students to explore the history and culture of another country, and you're with fellow learners, so there's opportunities to talk to individuals who work in the libraries and different campuses. One of our tour guides when we were in Greece was actually a woman who worked at the museum and oversaw the display pieces for the Oracle of Delphi. So you really have a specialist on the ground there to help you kind of understand these guest lecturers. They interact and kind of tell you more pieces about the local history that you really wouldn't see just in a tour book. And so while it's Walden approved, the tour operators that Lulu and her team work with are specific to the country, understand the logistics, and really manage all that piece of it so the students can go and just really explore the international culture and bring some of that learning back to their classrooms at Walden. Another aspect of Walden students in a global perspective is the public service trips. Again, these are overseen by Lulu Williamson. Most recently, they went to Panama in March. They went to 4 different sites. They went to a women's prison where our Walden University students were providing basic health care. These are some of our RNs. They went to a group home where 70 young children who were orphaned were living, and they did support and art projects and worked with those groups. There was a physical therapy foundation that assisted with children with various ailments, and they were able to work and spend time in that environment. And so this is the IDST 4002. It's a seminar with public service for Walden, and it's a 6-week course, 5 elective credits, and it's quite a wonderful opportunity for the students to get to interact with those in another culture and do service learning. So here's a direct quote from one of our contributing faculty, Irene McAfee, who went with Lulu on that trip. And she just talks about how really got to dig into the local culture and the individuals, the students. These are Walden students who are in public health, a medical doctor, 2 nurses, and a social worker. They authentically were providing medical attention during this public service trip. So I just thought it was really important as we think about supporting our international students. We really also need to support our domestic students to understand international issues, to do service learning in another land, and really bring that learning back to their Walden classrooms to make it a richer experience for all of us.
International residencies are a big part of the student residency program here at Walden. We have a number of residencies that take place overseas, as well as here in the U.S., and a student can sign up to go to any residency they would like. So if a student lives in the U.S. and would like to go to a residency in Barcelona or in London or in Paris or Puerto Rico, they could do that, and vice versa. And the national students can either attend residencies that are internationally outside of the U.S., or they can come to the U.S. in some of the various cities where we host residencies, such as Dallas, Atlanta, Hawaii, and Tampa, Florida. And so some of the support services that are offered is the information for the student visas for when students who live internationally outside of the U.S. come to the U.S. residencies. And this is really just some information both for students and faculty to be aware of when a student, for the students on the call, when you all sign up for your residencies. And if you've been already, then you're aware of this. But if you sign up, if you live internationally, you sign up for a residency in the United States, you'll receive a number of emails with all the detailed information you need in terms of how to get your visa. So that's one of the things that you will want to think about. And there is a link here that provides that information. So it's good for both students, who are thinking about attending an international residency to think about, as well as for faculty to know so that you can share it with your students too as you make announcements about upcoming residencies.
Hello everyone, this is Alex, and we obviously cannot talk about supporting any of our students, certainly our international student faculty, without talking about academic integrity. And so this slide outlines a few of what we would consider to be the academic integrity traditions of the United States, which are certainly not the same everywhere. I think Laurel said this the other day when we were chatting that, not all academic integrity is created equally, and that certainly is the case. Obviously, here in the U.S., we do require that it's essential that students cite the sources using quotes for material that is identical to the original language. Sometimes in other cultures, however, it is not the case, and they don't have quite as rigid citation requirements. And so you may find instances where, and there have been instances where international students in some countries may end up plagiarizing without intent at all, and that it's really considered to be more of paying homage or respect to the writer to copy or to reiterate their work. So just being cognizant, again, of the students that you have in your classes and the traditions with regard to academic integrity that they have in their home country, and understanding that as you're working with them to familiarize them with the standards that we must hold them to. And the last bullet point here, saying that it's difficult to sometimes reconcile the differences, we always would suggest, that in faculty having a conversation with a student, if they're, believe that they may have plagiarized, is again to, take everything into consideration and obviously assume the best in any initial conversation that you're having. We do have several resources throughout the university. We do have the Student Affairs, the Department of Student Affairs, that has a academic integrity office. Gina Dyson, I believe, manages all of that. There is a code of conduct at waldenu.edu email address that you can contact if you have any questions. You can certainly direct students there as well. There's an academic integrity corner in the Writing Center. When we get to the end of our presentation, as Laurel mentioned, I'll be doing kind of a walkthrough of the resources that we have for faculty, and we'll point on and show you some of these other resources that we have with regard to academic integrity at that time. Excellent. As Laurel mentioned, we did survey our faculty that are living internationally, or our true international faculty. Obviously, some of them are expats that are living internationally now, but we did survey them ahead of this conference. And so this slide shows some of the feedback that we received from those faculty about working with international students. So you can see that there are some common themes: reiterate, inform, and reemphasize, seeking support from faculty leaders or other faculty who may have worked with students from those other populations. They make a great suggestion, right, the top bullet point there, that we consider creating an orientation class for international students where academic integrity and other U.S. values like appreciation of cultural diversity, merit recognition, etc., are passed on to the students. So I thought that was a great suggestion to call out, and something that we'll certainly pass along to the folks that are working with student-facing courses, and see if there's some way to kind of weave some of these suggestions in. I don't want to read everything here. We will make this available for you. I think it's important, that fourth bullet, they do mention, not to cut corners, that you certainly have to be a little bit flexible and receptive to digging into finding out, what the academic integrity standards are from their home countries. But we certainly want to make sure that we are, holding to the policies that we have at Walden, especially with regard to referencing, and making sure that, you're providing them with the support in the classroom and directing them to the resources that the university has to make sure that we're able to familiarize them with what our expectations will be. And that last bullet mentioning to be patient and familiar with the students' cultural and professional background as well. That's something that I think is probably just good advice for any faculty with any students, but certainly in our attempts to best support our international students.
Here is some additional write-in comments that were provided by our international faculty on the survey that we provided. And these are just some sort of general support areas that we can provide for international students. And one of them is to be flexible in terms of scheduling synchronous communications. Of course, all of our courses are fully online at Walden, but there may be times in particular classes where a faculty member says, you know, hey, let's get together on Wednesday at 7 p.m. For those of you who are able, and, you know, let's chat about, you know, whatever the discussion topic is, or maybe a particular assignment. And those are always good opportunities to connect with your students in the classroom. But one of the things that you'll want to consider is make sure that you understand the various time zones that students are in. Again, this is just, you know, sort of thinking about having this broad international worldview. And so if those are the types of things that you're planning on doing, or if you're a student and you notice that a faculty member posts that, you know, you can even be proactive and reach out to your instructor and, you know, just sort of maybe remind them what time zone you're in. So those are just things to be cognizant about because there's even a big time difference just from the East Coast and the West Coast in the U.S. So imagine if, you know, we're meeting at 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you have a student that is in Europe and it's midnight for them. So those are just things that you're gonna want to keep in mind. And obviously, there's never going to be one time that works for everyone. So in those cases, it might even be good to have more than one session so that those who can't make one time might be able to make another. Another area of feedback is actually to get feedback from students. As you know, students do complete a survey at the end of the course, but as a faculty member, you can always post a thread maybe in the class cafe or in the Ask the Instructor area and just ask your students for, you know, feedback on how you can help support them. It's something that you can do either at the beginning of the class or maybe the last week of class. Just to get their feedback, or you could even send it as an email. Tone is another thing to take into consideration. And it's very, very important when it comes to the online environment because we don't see the gestures and the facial expressions and the body movement like we do when we're talking face to face. So you'll want to, both faculty and students will want to think about that as they are participating and sharing in the classroom and in the discussion board, and sort of just think about how tone comes across as you're writing on the screen. And then sort of the last suggestion from our faculty is to just really be aware of all cultural backgrounds and really be intentional about getting to know students and also sharing of yourselves. You know, it could be that international students may be a little bit nervous about participating. And so sometimes faculty actually can sort of break the ice by sharing, you know, some things about themselves and their interests and their hobbies that go beyond, you know, their professional information and maybe the research that they participate in. So these are some additional comments that faculty have shared in terms of how we can continue to support our international students. We also have some information for our international students, so just really some points of things for you to keep in mind to help you be successful. I mentioned earlier our ebooks. I happen to get mine from Amazon, but I know that there are other online avenues that you can get those from. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier, the other sort of bonus of ebooks is that you can highlight the text, you can save notes, and what I think is really great is that you can actually search for words and terms. So when you're going back and you're looking for something that maybe you want to cite from an author or from a book or from a journal, you can actually go back and find that really quickly as opposed through thumbing through the pages of a book. So that's just sort of one benefit of ebooks. Also familiarizing yourself with the Writing Center and the paper templates that are available. Our Walden Writing Center has a wealth of resources as well as webinars that they offer, all of which are archived so that you can go back and review those as needed. And then there are also paper templates to really help support not just international students, but all students in their writing. There's also tutoring services available. So those are other things that you may want to think about taking advantage of. And for faculty, these are things that you may just want to remind students of that are available. And then also for students, there's the Walden community, which you receive emails about. And it's sort of a closed community for Walden students and faculty. And it's just a way to develop community, to collaborate, and to get to know one another.
For us, about anything that we mentioned here or any of the resources that we talked about or following up, you can send an email to CFE for Center for Faculty Excellence. It's just cfe@waldenu.edu. And we'll certainly be happy to continue the conversation or respond to any questions that you have.